Hello everyone. Today I will talk about project management. Here is my outline. Today I will talk about project management, the characteristics of project, the project manager, planning and scheduling projects, the Gantt chart, PER, the network, critical path method, which is PM, the case of a dominant critical, project conclusion, trade-off between reduced project time and cost. Project management. Projection tools and techniques used to project activities to meet the project requirements. Most projects are expected to be completed within time, cost, and performance. Quietness, meaning that goals must be established and prior tasks must be identified and time estimates made. Resource requirements for the entire project have to be projected. Budgets have to be prepared. Once underway, progress must be monitored to make sure that project goals and objectives are met. Project approach, the organization focuses attention and concentrates efforts on accomplishing a narrow set of objectives within a limited time and budgets. The characteristics of project. Project have phases, planning, execution of planned activities, and phase out. Those phases are known as a project lifecycle and typically consist of 4 stages. Formulation and analysis. Organization recognize the need for a project. For example, the need to replace a healthcare facility with a more response to a request for a proposal from a potential customer or client. For example, expanding healthcare services to secure any third-party contract. The expected costs, benefits, and risk of undertaking the project must be analyzed at this stage. Planning. At this stage, details of how the work will flow are hammered out and estimate of necessary human resource, time, and cost. Implementation. The project is undertaken. Most of the time and resources for a project are consumed at this stage. Creation. The project is completed. Tasks include reassigning personnel and dealing with leftover and excess material and equipment. During the project life cycle, a project brings together people with expertise and diverse skills, who each become associated with only a portion of the project. Their involvement relates to their specialized skills. To manage these diverse skilled personnel is a challenge that is responsibility of the project manager. Project manager. The central figure in a project is the project manager, who bears the ultimate responsibility for its organization and completion. A project manager must be able to communicate effectively among project team members and coordinate their activities to accomplish the objectives. Once the project is underway, the project manager oversees a range of support activities. Both time constraints and costs must be managed so that the project is completed with the projected time frame and budgets. Planning and schedule project. Planning a project starts when its objectives have been established and the project manager and major players of the team have been identified. For planning and schedule the project, there are useful methodologies available. The Gantt chart, program evaluation and review technique, which is PE, and critical path method, which is CPM, give project manager the graphic displays of project activities and allow calculation of a time estimate for the project. Activities are project steps that consume resource and time. The crucial activities that require special attention to ensure on-time completion of the project can be identified, as well as the limits for how long others can be delayed. The Gantt chart is useful for scheduling project activities in the planning stage and then monitoring them by comparing their actual progress to planned progress. The Gantt chart depicts the duration of this project as 64. However, not all the activities occur at the beginning. For example, contractor selection, which is activity C, does not start until land has been acquired and a radiation oncologist hired, which is activity did not start until here. For certain decision in the input of key personnel for the new service must be considered. Dependency relationship exists among the activities. Some activities cannot start until after others are finished. Yet certain activities can be carried out parallel with others. For example, activity D and activity E can be carried out during the same time frame. Since a Gantt chart displays the information on a time scale, project manager can report activities to their internal and external constitutions during their implementation. They also can monitor the work of the subcontractors for conformity to the schedule. This table displays the crucial information that structure a project so that an activity cannot be started until after a previously necessary activity has been done. Similarly, those activities that can be performed simultaneously are identified. PERT and CPM. Program Evaluation and Review Technique, which is PERT, and Critical Path Method, CPM, are tools for planning and coordinating large projects. Project manager can graph the project activities, estimate the project duration, identify the activities most critical to its on-time completion, and calculate how long an activity can be delayed without delaying the project. The network. A network is a diagram of project activities and their present relationship as shown with arrows and nodes. An activity represented by an arrow is called AOA. An activity also cannot be represented by a node, which is a circle, and is then called AON. Although in practice both representations are used, most project management computer programs are designed using an AON network. In this figure, illustrates the convention used for activity on arc and identify activity on node networks. Three activities, A, B, and C, are to be completed for the project. Activity A and B start and finish at the same time. Activity C cannot start until A and B have been finished. Critical path method, which is CPM. One of the main features of the network diagram is that it shows the sequence in which activities must be performed. On AON network, it's customary to add a start node preceding activity to mark the start of project and node to mark its conclusion. In this figure 13.2 shows that activity A and B must be completed before activity C can begin. And activity D and E cannot be started until activity C is finishing. In ensuing section, activity F and G cannot start before activity D and E are finished. Finally, activity H can start once activities F and G are finished. A path is a sequence of activities that leads from the start node to the end node. Here, the radiation oncology project has 8 paths, and I will give an example. It's starting with B, and it's continuing with C, then D, and then it will go to H and go to the end. It will here it's going B, C, H, B, C, D, F, H. Yani fifth path. I did fifth path. The length of time for any path is found by summing the times of activities on the path. The time length of length for these 8 paths. For these 8 paths, the path time length in here. Right. For example, let's do the first one. It's 4 weeks. So here it will be 4 weeks. C is 8 week. 8 week. D has 24 weeks. F 4 weeks. And H, activity H, has 4 weeks. It will, by summing this path time, it's 44 weeks. The critical path or the path with the longest time is the most important. It defines the expected project duration. All activities on the critical path are known as critical activities. ES. The earliest time an activity can start if all preceding activities started as early as possible. LS. The latest time the activity can start and not delay the project. EF. The earliest time the activity can finish. LF. The latest time the activity can finish and not delay the project. By computing the ES, LS, EF, and LF, one can determine the expected project duration, critical path, and slack time. Computing ES and EF times. The earliest finish EF finish time for any activity is equal to its earliest start time plus an expected duration, which is activity time. Computing LS and LF times. The latest starting time, which is LS, for an activity is equal to latest start and finishing time minus its expected duration. The allowable slack of the time for an activity as well as for a path is called slack. The slack for an activity is the difference between the latest start time and the earliest time. It can also be computed by taking difference between the latest finish time and the earliest finish time. Probabilistic approach. Many real-life project networks are much larger than the simple network illustrated in the preceding example. They often contain hundreds or even thousands of activities. Because the necessary computation can become exceedingly complex and time-consuming, large networks are usually analyzed by computer programs rather than manually. Often situations arise when healthcare manager cannot estimate activity time with certainty. Such situations require a probabilistic approach which uses three-time estimates for each activity instead of first one, optimistic time, the length of time required under the best condition. Second one, pessimistic time, the length of time required under the worst condition. Most likely time, the most probable length of time required. The values can then be used. Find the average or expected time for each activity and the variance of each activity time. That calculation uses a beta distribution, where the expected time, which is mean, is computed as a weighted average of three-time estimates. Here is our calculation. The standard deviation of each activity's time is estimated as 1/60 of the difference between the pessimistic and the optimistic time estimates. The variance is then by found squaring the standard deviation. The size of the variance reflects the degree of uncertainty about an activity's time. The larger the variance, the greater the uncertainty. After completing the average time estimates and the variance for each activity, the analysis returns to the path in the project network, since completing a project on time depends on the path completion times. The completion time for any path is a simple sum of all activity time estimates. The standard deviation of the expected time for each path can also be computed by summing the variance of the activities on a path and then taking the square root of that number. Once the probabilistic expected path times and their standard deviation are determined, a healthcare manager can calculate the probability that the project will be completed by a specific time, as well as the probability that it will take longer. The case of a dominant critical path. If a critical path is dominant, no other paths are significant for completion probabilities. Then joint probabilities need not to be calculated. In such a case, software programs can calculate the completion probabilities for any number of targeted completion time. The Excel solution in this here also depicts the duration. The Excel solution to the probabilistic radiation oncology project is here. In this figure also depicts the solution for PM, which is completion by the 65th weeks, and it's writing here, but it's small. 58%, and the completion time for target probability of 95% is about 72 weeks. Project completion, trade-off between reduced project time and cost. Today's healthcare environment offers many opportunities due to rapidly changing technology. In a competitive market environment, these opportunities provide incentives for early completion of project. The strategic importance of market share gained with early product entry to the market often justifies consideration of early project completion. However, such opportunities do not come without added cost. Reducing project completion time requires shortening activities time, especially for activities on the critical path. A reduced activity time means more resources must be spent on time activity, raising its cost. Keeping this in mind, healthcare project managers must inform themselves of the cost of reduced activity time and perform a cost-benefit analysis for early project completion. The time for an activity can be reduced, for example, by adding more manpower or overtime or technology. In order to carry out the completion of the project, a project manager gathers estimates of the regular and completion times and cost for each activity, and computes the length of all paths, including the critical paths. A generic algorithm for project completion can be summarized as follows. The first one, compute path lengths and identify the critical paths. Second, rank the activities on critical paths according to their completion cost. Third one, shorten the activity with the least completion cost and critical paths. Fourth one, calculate total cost. Fifth one, the last one. Compare the total cost of the current completion time to that of the previous completion time. If total cost has decreased, perform step 1, throw 4 again. Otherwise, stop because optimum completion time has been achieved. In summary, project management is an approach for handling unique one-time indicators that may have long or short-time horizons, significant costs, and on the organization operation. Since this project includes separate activities, planning and coordination are essential to complete them on time, within cost constraints, and with a high quality result. Thank you listening for me. And if you have any question, I would be happy to answer them.